Maybe Stephanie, should I kick it off or just wait another minute?
Yeah, I think we're good to kick it off. I actually do see, well, welcome everyone to our Stockton Indoor Air Subcommittee. I actually do see maybe a couple new faces, so I wonder if we do a round of intros, but I'm happy to pass to you, Kevin.
Yeah, sure thing. Intros is part of it. So yes, I definitely want to introduce myself since I am a new face as well. So yeah, just welcome everyone to the September Indoor Air Quality Subcommittee meeting. My name is Kevin. I just wanted to quickly go over the agenda today. And so we'll definitely do a round of introductions. I'm a new face, but I'd love to know everyone as well. And as part of our discussion, our goals today is consensus on expanding the program, discussion of CBO distributors versus ACE distributors, or more of CBO partnerships, and moving into, so also including expanding the program discussion with Valley Air, CBO partner versus ACE distribution. How do I deem most in need? So a follow-up conversation on the eligibility criteria, and finishing off with questions and next steps. So that's what we have for today. And I'm happy to kick off introductions. So hey everyone, my name is Kevin Tsunga. I'm with Weatherization, currently stepping in for Elaine, who's on maternity leave. And I work with her on the respiratory disease mitigation at the Weatherization. And I guess a good check-in question is, what's your favorite fall drink, since we're kind of moving into that? And for me, it is a hot toddy. It's personal preference. I'd like to pass it off to Jazz Marie, who's going to be my co-facilitator today.
Hey everybody, I am Jazz Marie Latour, she, her, hers. I am a resident in the AB 617 boundary and also here for the Indoor Air Quality Subcommittee. What was the question again, Kevin?
What is your favorite fall drink?
Ooh, fall drink. Definitely, I love warm teas, and then in the fall, messing around with different herbs and stuff for my immune system. Yeah. I'll pass it over to Cynthia.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Cynthia Pinto Cabrera's, she, her, hers with the Central Valley Air Quality Coalition. And favorite fall drink, that's a tough one. I'm going not fall, but more winter, but Mexican hot chocolate is definitely what came to mind. My grandma home makes the little I'm not sure if you've ever had like the abuelita hot chocolates, the little round ones. My grandma makes those from scratch, so they're extra delicious. With that, I'll pass it off to Kimberly.
Good afternoon, Kimberly McCoy, she, her, hers pronoun. Climate and environmental policy advocate here at Central California Asthma Collaborative. My favorite fall drink is eggnog and brandy without the eggnog. and I will pass it off to Sam.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sammy Renesses, she, her pronouns. I'm also a climate and environmental policy advocate at Central California Asthma Collaborative. My favorite fall drink is probably hot cider with maybe a little bit of Fireball in it or something to keep me warm. And I will pass it to Kyle.
Thanks, Sammy. Hey, everybody. I'm Kyle Goff with CARB. Pronouns are he, him, his. I work on the Community Air Protection Incentives and, by extension, the Carl Moyer program. And man, I think anything hot is a good fall drink for me. Although, oh boy, hot toddy. Oh, I love it. Very good choice. So yeah, I think that's it for me. I'll popcorn it over to Stephanie.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie, she, hers, and I'm a senior air quality specialist at the Air District in the Community Strategies and Resources Department, which oversees the implementation of AB 617. And I think fall drink is like Jazzy, I'm a big tea drinker. So I just had this morning Earl Grey with a splash of milk, and I think super cozy way to start the morning, even though it is still in the 90s right now. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it to Janine.
Good afternoon, everybody. Janine Tackett, Supervising Air Quality Specialist in the Grants Department, and I oversee all of our on-road heavy-duty truck programs and our air filtration programs. Gosh, I've been thinking the whole time I've been waiting for my turn as to what my favorite is. I have lots of favorites, and I'm a tea drinker every night and a coffee drinker every morning. So that holds true regardless of the season or the temperature. But if I was to pick a fall drink, it would probably be my mom's spiced mulled cider. She usually does it at Christmas time though, and it's, you know, sitting warming on the stove, and it just fills the whole house with beautiful smell of spices and sweetness. So, and that one is also good to add a little Fireball to also. I've heard a few of those, but that one also works well. So I'll go ahead and pass it to Juan Luis.
Thank you, Janine, and hello, everybody. My name is Juan Luis Carranza, Senior Communications Rep here at the Valley Air District. Favorite fall drink? I would have to agree with Jassy. I love teas, ginger tea with some honey and lemon, and I'm good to go. Yeah. And so I'll pass it over to Scott.
And I'm sorry, I was in a meeting that ran late, and so I missed the prompt. I'm sounding like favorite fall drink. Does it have to be hot? Pumpkin martini. And I like a good cup of coffee too. And I'm Scott with the California Air Resources Board, for those of you that don't know me. I am the AB 617 or Community Air Protection Liaison to the Stockton Community Steering Committee. So sorry I was late, but glad to be here with everybody. And I don't know who went because I came in late, so I'll let Stephanie handle that.
Yeah, and I think we just have one person left. I see Everett just joined us. Everett, I don't know if you're if you can hear us and you're ready to speak, but if you'd like, we're doing intros and just sharing our favorite fall drink. Maybe Everett's still joining us, so.
I'm sorry, I'm driving,
hey, no
but I'm here. Have a great day. Lot going on, and I'm just wanted to, well, I could try to get on. I'm on my cell phone. All right, thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining, Everett.
Thank you.
And I'll go ahead and pass it back to Kevin.
Thank you, Stephanie. And this is a really fun group formulating from the drink. So I'd like to move on to the next part of the agenda. So expanding the program discussion. So Valley Air providing an update on the Clean Air Rooms pilot program, lessons learned, and discuss the potential for moving funding or expanding the measure as to make more units available and allow us to streamline the process. I'd like to hand it off to Valley Air.
Thanks, Kevin. And Janine, maybe I'll pass to you for a quick update on our Clean Air Room pilot and how that part is doing. And then maybe part 2 of that, we can go ahead and discuss potentially expanding the program and reallocating funding.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. The program is actually going very well. We've taken in about 1,200 applications, and we've got a few slots in pretty much every county still open. Although our portal was set to cut off with an estimated cost per application, as we're getting the order information back in from ACE, we're truing up all of those numbers with the accurate cost for each device. And as that's happening, we're able to open more slots. So probably in the coming days, we'll be opening our portal that for the counties that previously had closed, because funds are becoming available in small amounts in most all of the counties. So we will not be doing a big announcement for that, but rather we'll be reaching out to the 617 community groups, CSC members and such, to help identify some additional residents that would like to participate in the program for those counties. Right now, the process is going relatively smooth, although we have identified lots of points of lessons learned and a lot of great experiences. And I think a lot of those things will help us to further develop our programs for the communities into an even more streamlined and efficient process. So hopefully we can share some of those throughout the discussion today and help guide the committee in development of that program for your community.
Perfect. Thanks, Janine. Does anyone have any questions? So again, for just as a reminder for folks, this is the district-wide clean air room pilot program that kicked off. And so like Janine is saying, we've learned so much. I know Janine has learned so much and become such an expert in this field. And so we're really hoping to use these lessons to make sure the AB 617 specific program runs really smoothly. Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, seeing thumbs up. And so maybe I'll go ahead and address the second half that I heard from Kevin just about potential for reallocating funds. I think just generally across the board, I think this group is aware that I think as we've learned since the beginning of when the CERP was written and developed by the CSC to like now, there's a lot that we've learned just about which CERP measures are kind of need funding, and we know a lot more about which groups may or may not be using funding. And so there is funding available based on this. For example, I'm thinking we heard very recently from someone at Stockton Unified that the school air filtration funds, they did say that those would be better used in other measures. So we do have funding available for reallocation. And I think just process-wise, if there's a subcommittee that wants to share out and bring to the full CSC, I think that's something that we can definitely bring up at an upcoming CSC meeting. I think just generally based on kind of our charter and based on how we want to operate as a group, if the subcommittee is interested in it, we can bring it for a full vote or consensus decision with the full CSC.
A question I have: how much money are we looking to reallocate under a measure?
Yeah, I'll just kind of say generally we want to make. I think something that we're thinking is we want to make sure that we're understanding that there's like a demand and an interest in programs. And I think generally residential air filtration across all of our communities is something that there's been a really positive response and a strong response to folks wanting to apply. But just generally, I will say for the measure that we had in Stockton for the installation of advanced filtration systems in schools, that was about 2.6 million. That we're now hearing from Stockton Unified that, whether it's their systems that have already been upgraded due to COVID funds, just generally Stockton Unified has shared that they're not, they believe that the funds could be better used elsewhere in the community. And I'll pop in a link for our tracker. I don't know if folks are familiar with this, but I'll reshare. This is a tracker that we have that basically tracks all of the progress on all of the measures.
And would we try to set like a number that we could present to the entire CSC, or do you all have a number at Valley Air that you're proposing to move forward?
So I'll just generally say that I don't believe that our district has any number that we're proposing, and so we're open to hearing numbers. I think just generally, yeah, I think I'd have to touch base with our team, but there's nothing that our district is proposing in terms of moving this funding from that measure. And I just want to kind of echo something that Kimberly is saying. So Kimberly is also part of our Fresno CSC, and it is something that's exactly happening in Fresno as well. So thanks, Kim, for bringing that comment up.
I have a question. With the Stockton CSC, will they be the ones deciding where to move the funding, kind of like the same process that we did in Fresno?
Yes, okay. That's a great question. Yeah, and so I think maybe folks have heard this. This is something that's happening across communities. I think all of our communities have similar measures in which we've realized, after COVID, that COVID funds and just, everything that happened with the pandemic, just things have changed for folks and how things we allocated prior to COVID, things have just changed, and we've learned that. And so across all communities, we've gone through this process of reallocating funds. And so Kimberly, for your knowledge and just for everyone to keep the group kind of on the same page, I know that's happened in Fresno, and in Stockton, we just in the last month did an exercise. We've talked about one measure, and we did an exercise to really talk about our values as a CSC and really what the CSC is interested, or kind of the values behind how they want to shift funds. And one of the main priorities that came out is this group really shared that they want to prioritize solutions that help the community like ASAP. So I'll let you know if anyone in the groups wants to share that feedback from that exercise that Harder ran, feel free, but that's generally what the district heard from that exercise.
Can I ask Kimberly what was, I don't know if you're going to be sharing out later because I don't see Kevin, but how was the experience over in Fresno?
The experience in Fresno has been a long one. Fresno Unified School District didn't want to use the funds for the air filtration as well. We had meetings with our trustees on the school board, and they assured us that they would be looking into the schools to kind of like take a look and do a inventory and be able to see if they can use the funds. But because they received funds from ARPA, that they did not take the funds. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it's been a while that we decided to move some of the funds to electric school buses to get more of those funds, to get more of those buses inside the schools that are within the boundary. But I have to revisit that. But that's something that we decided as a CSC altogether, not just the subcommittee. We had our subcommittee meeting, we reported out, and then together as a CSC, we decided which funds would be moved and how they will be used. But Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a while.
Thanks. I do think, Kimberly, I'm trying to recall too. I think at the moment, air filtration, it is exactly like you're saying, Fresno Unified. We had a meeting with the trustees, and they were very, at that meeting, responsive and interested, and told us that they were interested in it and that they would let us know about the status of all of their schools and the filtration units in that school. And as far as I believe, Janine, I think it is a different. Oh, maybe Janine actually has a response to this, but I believe we were waiting to hear back from schools.
So we've been working very closely with Fresno Unified. They have selected a device that would be suitable for their school that they want to move forward with. And they are currently, at least what they've told me, filling out their applications to apply for it. If they do, in fact, get their applications in, they will most likely take up all of the funds that have been allocated to that measure, because they have 32 school sites, and they're looking at portable devices for each of the classrooms, and also potentially, if funding is able to cover units for their multi-purpose rooms, so that when they hold assemblies and things of that nature, where they're bringing all the kids into the multi-purpose room, they have coverage in there as well. They are, though, looking at purchasing the devices for the entire school district. 32 of the schools would be covered under the program. The rest of it would be paid for by Fresno Unified 100% out of their own pocket. But they do want to, they did take a little time to select a device that would work for the same device for all of their sites. So that is where we're at. But I can say for sure, we do not have applications in-house for them yet.
Did the device that they selected, Janine, were they MERV 13s or better?
They're true HEPA filters. So that's
okay.
Basically off the MERV rating. It's higher than the MERV rating.
Okay.
Yeah. And it does meet all of the community air protection guideline requirements for the decibel, the noise level, the CADR rating. It is equipped with a HEPA filter. And I believe it does also have some pathogen control attributes to it as well. So it looks to be a pretty good device. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
And Kim, I'm just wondering, is that raised hand a different question or the same one? Oh, perfect. Okay. Awesome. And I guess I will share also or offer that we do have, based on our agenda setting, there were a lot of questions about specific CERT measures. So actually at our upcoming meeting, we do plan to have what the concept is in-depth subcommittee subcommittee updates. I think normally we give quick verbal updates that are like maybe a few minutes long, but we plan to do something more in depth. So I think this would be a great opportunity to bring up with the full group just what the subcommittee's been up to, and potentially bring up the idea of, hey, you know, this is a measure that we want the CSC to consider for reallocations of funds.
And I have a question about the reallocation. So if we decide to reallocate and increase funds, will the 60-40 split with the 60 going to priority neighborhoods and 40 first come first serve still apply even with an increase?
Yeah, and so a concept that we are thinking of, and something that you know,
Yeah.
across the board, I think with even Fresno, is we're hoping that the increase in funding we'll hope to get much more devices, and we want to make sure we're not limiting the group and limiting any applications. So a concept that we had thought about and wanted to bring up with this group is, you know, for the buckets, if we're not sure if, you know, it's going to be a little limiting, we were thinking about potentially prioritizing folks that this subcommittee decides, and whatever prioritization that we do come up with in this group to potentially, rather than, you know, a 60-40 bucket, that maybe, you know, some folks are you know, whether or not folks are getting into that priority or not, of just prioritizing and making sure those applications for whatever the subcommittee decides is high priority, those applications are just processed first. And Janine, I don't know if you have anything else to add about this, but we want to make sure, based on what we heard from the group of wanting to make sure that these solutions are assisting the community as soon as possible. We definitely heard that at the last full CSC meeting, and so a concept we did want to bring up with this group is, rather than this kind of like split, how do we decide? Is it 60-40? Is it something else? That we just base it based on whatever kind of criteria that this group comes up with, that will always, based on that criteria, process those applications, and they'll always be pushed to the top of the line.
Yeah, I don't know, Stephanie, were we going to bring up some slides on this?
Oh, yeah. I'm happy to.
It might be easier as I talk through that
Yeah.
concept, if everybody has that visual to kind of look at and read through along with me. But yeah, you know, we can definitely look at variations of the how to manage the priority populations. Having separate pots of money is one way. It's administratively a little bit more cumbersome, because you're trying to track a program based on two different pots of money. It's doable, and we can absolutely go in that direction if that's, you know, ends up being the consensus. But we wanted to make sure that we kind of presented some alternate options that may get us to the same end goal in a little bit more streamlined fashion. So as Stephanie had mentioned, you know, we can set up some eligibility criteria, and then identify at what level do they then become priority population or priority application. So some of the ideas that I had gathered up from our previous conversations, we've included in this first line under potential applicant eligibility. So clearly everybody must reside within the boundaries. That's like a given. I don't think anybody will disagree on that one. And then we kind of started identifying, okay, well, we know we've talked about the lower income grouping, and enrollment in an existing low income program through the state is a great way to identify that. Programs like CalFresh, Medi-Cal, WIC, there's a whole list, and we can definitely include whatever ones that the committee thinks is relevant. Also, we did hear a lot about targeting the most sensitive groups. So we added children under the age of 18. So this would kind of hit those school age kids that would have otherwise maybe gotten some clean air remedies at school, but now we're targeting their homes instead, as well as our senior citizens, as they are in a more vulnerable group as well. And then we also heard a lot of conversations about targeting folks that do have respiratory or challenges with respiratory illnesses, diseases, and or conditions. So one of the things that we've talked about in some of our previous conversations is how do you determine the eligibility? Do you collect information, documentation? Do you make them prove that they are enrolled in one of these programs, or that they have dependents at their house, through income tax filing, or some type of documentation from a doctor or another health agency identifying that they've been diagnosed with something? And while all of those are great ways to ensure that somebody is not lying on their application, it does pose a definite challenge when getting people quickly through the process. So one of the things that we have found in the pilot program, we only asked for proof of residency. That was the only criteria we put on the program for that pilot. So you had to be in a disadvantaged census tract based on Cal and Biro screen. So we asked for a copy of their most recent power bill, PG&E, SoCal Edison, or their public utilities, water, garbage bill, because those are services directly tied to the address. We wanted to see their name, the address on the bill. So one document. We had approximately a quarter of the applications submitted that had issues with getting us the right document. Either they would send something that was completely not what we were asking for, like a cell phone bill, or they couldn't get a clear picture of it. They had trouble getting, the right portion of the information. We didn't want to necessarily see the entire bill, just that top section that has their name, address, and the header saying, oh, PG&E. Okay, we see it's PG&E bill. So with only that one proof document, having a almost 25% failure rate on it, we definitely have some concerns about asking for additional proof, and especially when it comes to medical situations. That's something that we want to really be careful and consider what we're asking for. So with some of the lessons that we've learned in the pilot, our recommendation would be that these are yes, no questions on the application, and that the resident is just self-certifying, because at the end of the day, even if they've falsely indicated they have a respiratory condition, they're still within the community, and the community as a whole has been identified as being more disadvantaged than other communities. So I'm going to pause right there on the eligibility. I see Everett does have his hand up. Did you have a question, Everett?
Yes. I might. I don't know if you want me to wait till after or anything. It's just a question I was concerned about. I know you have the agenda and everything, and I don't know. This is probably not part of the agenda, but if you want me to wait, I can wait till you after you, if everything's over with. You guys can finish it with your project plan.
If your question is relevant to the topic right now, I'm happy to pause and address your question. If you think it's maybe a little off topic and you feel more comfortable waiting, it's up to you.
Yeah, well, it's just the question. The question is this: I'm concerned with nonprofit groups, different types of nonprofit groups, and what have you. And my concern is that have it been considered now with the COVID, after the COVID, and you have a lot of small churches and groups that are not fully up to par with people going back and whatever. Have these same items been considered for small churches? And that's one of the things I was concerned about, because you have these people that are some of the older people in some of the same areas and what have you that have conditions and what have you. And some of these churches, they're not cleaning up their filtration systems like they should and going in, but they don't know anything about this kind of stuff. So that's my concern. And I'm just throwing it out there because I don't know. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Everett. And I think you definitely bring up a very important point there, because that is a place of gathering. And you do have, oftentimes larger groups of people all congregating in the same area. Unfortunately, state dollars have legal restrictions on being used in religious institutions. There are some caveats to that state law. This is not like an air district rule or law. This is state law.
Correct.
If the grant was being given for something that the church was using for the public, I'm going to use our lawn and garden program for lawnmowers as an example. The church has a large grassy area that has no fencing around it, and anybody from the public can come and have a picnic on their grass or kick a ball around with their kids.
Correct.
That would be allowed legally for us to fund the lawnmower replacement. Unfortunately, if it's for use inside their church for their congregation, it would fall within an area, a boundary that we are not allowed to fund. So unfortunately, that would be something that we would not be allowed to fund with the state money.
Correct. Okay, that's the reason why, because people are asking in the community different questions for where is this, where is this being used for, especially people like school district and everybody else is turning it down. Why are they overlooking certain other projects? And I understand the privilege of separation of church and state.
Yes.
I understand that, but that's just a question I just wanted to throw out there. Okay,
absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And to Everett's point, I would like to mention that our other communities are electing to consider private daycares and private preschools as eligible applicants for the residential program. So that is another area that can be considered by the community. And again, a very vulnerable population in those centers, and whether that be a in-home daycare within the community boundaries or commercial daycare. The commercial daycare would be a little bit harder because they're doing a much larger building, but also something to consider would be senior centers. So that's another one. If you are looking at a larger pot of money and want to include some of those other areas that do cater to vulnerable populations, those would be within the realm of consideration for the funding.
Great.
Okay. So Stephanie, if you'd like to bring the PowerPoint back up, I'll run through the rest of those. Okay, so we kind of have, some concepts here for eligibility, and our initial thoughts that we wanted to present and suggest were that in order to be classified as a priority application, they would need to meet maybe one or more of the following, maybe two of the bullets there. So we know everybody's going to be in the boundary. And then beyond that, how many of these other areas they fall into might be a good way to establish who is priority population, who's not. And then from there, it would be, well, do we have the separate buckets of money, or do we just prioritize those applications at the top of the list and get their orders out as quickly as we can, ahead of the ones that don't indicate they have those additional criteria met? So that's a concept to kind of think about there. When we look at the proposed applicant prioritization, so this is something that that we're kind of talking about. We're doing a first come, first serve, but within that first come, first serve, we can move up to the top of the list people who meet certain criteria, or we can, and that would be very, very easy and very quick for us to do administratively, or we can fund them just in the order that they're received, but from different pots of money. We split the money, and that way, if we have a high volume of applications come in that just meet being in the boundary and no other criteria, and now those funds are fully exhausted, then we will still have money left for applications that come in down the road that do meet those criteria. We may find in that scenario a lull as we expend all of the general pot of money and then wait for priority population applications to come in. I don't know if that would be the case or not, but that is something to consider, that it could create some dips and valleys in the number of applications coming in, we might find that, you know, we get a surge and then it dips down, and then we kind of have to do more outreach to find those people and get them to apply. So something to consider there. That which brings me to outreach. Outreach is one of the things that's going to be really critical to the success of this program. And in our experience with the pilot program, I really do think that a grassroots outreach effort is ideal. And I think that's where we're going to really rely on CBOs to assist us with that. The CBOs are oftentimes already in contact and connected with those that are most severely disadvantaged and those that are in the greatest need. Oftentimes those people are not necessarily connected with the Air District and receiving our email blasts and looking at our website and using our apps. So they may not even have any connection to us. We have also found over the years that oftentimes some of those people are also a little maybe suspicious of something that sounds too good to be true. You're going to give me something totally for free? What? I don't know. You want my information? I don't trust that. So the CBOs are really our bridge to that group in the community, you know, giving them the information about the program, providing them reassurances that, hey, we know people at the Air District. We've worked with them for a number of months. We have relationships with them. You can trust them. Also, we have found through the pilot program that some of our residents just are not able to do an online application. Whether they don't have the technology, they don't feel comfortable with the technology, maybe they simply don't read and write, and so they don't feel comfortable, you know, with certain sharing of information in that way. And our CBOs have been very helpful with the pilot program in helping those residents. We have also established a process internally with our staff where somebody can call in and we can assist them over the phone in getting an application submitted. So that's something that we definitely want to put out there for consideration. And I believe, I don't have a lot of information on it. Stephanie might be able to answer more questions, but we have some mini grants that are available that could cover costs to CBOs for enhanced outreach efforts and such. So that is definitely something we would love to be able to leverage to get the CBOs more involved in outreach efforts for these types of programs. So I am going to pause there again and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, I just personally, I just want to do a quick time check. It is 4:42, and I just wanted to go into like in helping assess like what our outreach capacity can look like as CBOs and partners, to also talk about the distribution, like what is that going to look like. Is it okay if we move into that section? I know Kevin also was gonna, from CCAC, was gonna share a little bit what the CBO distribution look like in their area. I don't know if anyone from Kevin's team wants to talk about it and give them an opportunity. But if not, I'll give it back to you, Janine. But yeah, just talking about that can really help us assess like how much outreach is needed, you know, depending on sort of like the model that we choose.
I apologize. I'm not familiar with that program, so Kevin was going to be on the call to talk about that. But I do know that he's in another meeting right now working on a grant with another employee, so I don't know if he's going to be able to join.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
You know, if I might jump in and just comment on what the district has done already with the pilot program. We've done a direct ship from the vendor to the resident's address. So one of the things that was voiced when we were developing the pilot program were that the concept that very likely people in disadvantaged communities don't necessarily have the means or the resources to drive somewhere to pick something up. So we set up the program to be a direct delivery to them. We submit the information to the vendor places the orders and ships it directly to the specified address that the applicant, the resident, has given us. And that has worked very well. We've had a small number of issues, shipping issues, damaged product, porch pirates, but it's been a very small percentage. Out of the I think we're about at 1,100 devices delivered to date. We've had five deliveries that had some kind of issue, damage during shipment, or porch pirate, or something along those lines. So I think it's been very good, and it's very fast. So considering if the district placed an order to the vendor and then had that shipped to a CBO who then did the distribution, you've got a bit of a lag time there when you are sending it to one spot and then from there parsing it out and delivering them to the individual residents. If we do a direct ship, it will be much faster. It will probably shave off a considerable amount of time in the shipping process. So that is, something to consider too. If we are considering the VMT, vehicle miles traveled, again, we want to look at ways to minimize. I mean, if we had a bunch of electric cars, that would probably not be an issue, but we do want to consider that. We want to consider selecting a delivery method that will be the most efficient for vehicle miles traveled as well. So something to consider there. The Valley is, a pretty broad area. Your community is not as small as some of the other communities. We have some real tiny communities. So there is a bit of distance, but I think that a direct ship option would be the fastest way to get devices into the homes.
Just to add on, Janine, I think in what you're saying about us learning a lot from the district-wide program, we did learn the great benefit of the direct ship, but then also I think learned a lot about working with the kind of the ACE corporate model that we've worked with. And I think based on that have come up with, 3 different options in which we wanted to bring to this group. Potentially that could work out, that are learned from our district-wide program, but are slightly different and hopefully improved based on what we learned. So Janine, I'll go ahead and share my screen if you wanted to walk through these options.
Yeah. I know we're throwing a lot of info at you guys, but we really are excited about this, and we really wanted to get all these pieces out there and get everybody really thinking about them. So we have either direct from a manufacturer. We've got the option of partnering with a retail chain such as Ace Hardware, or a hybrid model. And what our experience has been with Ace Hardware, they've been a great partner to work with. They've really they have done a lot of problem solving, because Ace Corporate doesn't actually sell product. They're a franchise and the individual stores sell product. So we weren't able to go directly with each of the stores, because you don't really know as the applications are coming in which store they might be tied to. So Ace Corporate found a way to place the orders through their e-commerce site. However, it was a square hole in a round peg, and it has posed challenges on both sides of the equation. And Ace has been great, a great team player working through those, but it has slowed things down considerably. Our experience with AB 836, the Clean Air Centers, which is a statewide program, has been a direct ship from manufacturers. And that one flows much smoother. Larger quantities, we're dealing with much larger quantities. And with that concept, we can do an RFQ, and we can basically force the manufacturers, hey, if you want to participate, you got to give us your best competitive pricing. In our pilot program, we did not request any preferential pricing from Ace, because it was a very fast turnaround, short time frame to develop the program. We went ahead and selected devices that hit our price point, but we did pay full retail for them. So we would definitely in the communities want to get the best pricing possible. We'd want to go to an RFQ and get the best pricing, so we get the most devices for the total dollar amount. Our recommendation would be a hybrid model. ACE is a perfect project partner for in-person events where we set up in front of the local ACE hardware store. That ACE hardware store has worked to secure us inventory, and we literally hand out devices in the parking lot. They would really be able to handle that, I think, with no problem at all. And then the standard application process, we would recommend going with a direct from a manufacturer. So we would, kind of have a little bit of that hybrid model, but still be able to utilize each vendor for what their strengths would bring to the project. Any questions?
Margot, I saw your hand up first. Do you have a question?
No, it was just about the in-person events. I couldn't quite picture that, so.
Yeah. So the way that we've been running in-person events for other programs is we do an RSVP application. So basically you get your info into us ahead of the event, and we check eligibility. And then the day of the event, they show up, we've got their application printed out because we need their signature on it. So they sign it. And then we would essentially at that point just put the device in their car and wish them a good day, and off they go. Really, an in-person event would be a fantastic way to kick off the program, to get started. Every event we've done for our lawnmower program has been hugely successful, and the residents just are thrilled to participate in them. It's because it's immediate. Like, there's no waiting, there's no, is this going to actually happen? Will I ever actually get this device? Like, they show up, they sign their application, and they walk away with their device. So that's definitely something that we would encourage the community to do, and maybe even as a means to kick off the program and get kind of the frenzy going. I think that we could probably handle an event that did around 500 units. Of course, that would be solely dependent upon the vendor selected and the inventory they can secure. But with enough notice, I think they can get in the inventory, and we could have a great day. I know we'll be probably launching in the winter-ish, early spring, but I think we could still manage it. We typically do those as drive-through events to help keep people from congregating in large groups. We started the events kind of at the tail end of COVID. I guess we're still at the tail end of COVID. So we try to keep them where we can have an area where they just drive through. They don't need to get out of their car or anything. But at the same time, we do recognize that that's not the only model that we could do, because there's a lot of residents that don't drive or can't afford to drive unnecessary places. So we want to make sure that, we do have the standard process available at roughly at the same time, so that people that hear about it but cannot attend can still apply through the standard process.
I think, like Janine said, I know that we know that there's a lot of information, and we're just want to take a pause, take any questions, and maybe get reactions from folks about some of these options presented. One, about any of, in terms of the distribution process for how these filters get to folks. And two, about any of the potential eligibility criteria that we've discussed as well.
Yeah, thanks. Go ahead, Jazzy.
I'll go after you, Cynthia.
No worries. Yeah, so I think the hybrid version is definitely appealing. But I know one of the reasons we were really interested in that CBO distribution is ways to kind of measure progress from the subcommittee and this measure, and seeing how things can be improved in home and how indoor air quality is improved. So I think I would ask that maybe if we could include do you have an indoor air filter or an indoor air monitoring device or anything like that inside the yes or no questions as well. And then I'm interested in if the district is doing any follow-up with their pilot program on, just how folks are liking their air filters, if they're noticing a difference. I think just even that is really valuable information that I think we're also interested here in this subcommittee.
Yeah, we haven't started any follow-up. And I don't know if we've got a super structured plan for that, but I do know that there has been an ongoing conversations on analysis of the program and things of that nature. So I would imagine once we're done processing applications and all the orders are out, that's when we'll probably start the next phase of that analysis phase. And we can definitely, something that's very easy is to send out a survey to everybody that that has participated, and hope that you get a fair number of people that participate in the survey back. And that's definitely something that I see more and more just in my own personal life. Doctors' offices and a variety of places will send a survey on how well did you, what was your experience at our facility or stuff. So I think we could definitely utilize some of that modern technology to get a nice, easy survey out. And gather, some of that additional information on how they, what their experience was, and whether or not they've seen improvement or, unfortunately I shouldn't say that. Fortunately, we haven't had severe fires that impacted the valley for long periods of time this summer. So some people may have received their devices and maybe not started using them yet. Maybe they haven't felt a need to. Maybe they felt like they only needed to use them on the most extreme, error alert days. So it would definitely be a good idea to do that follow-up.
Just to that, to Janine, I was thinking how you were saying like, because it was kind of hard for some folks to fill out even just their eligibility online. And so also assuming that it might be hard to fill out a survey online as well. And so I kind of think maybe having that CBO like involvement could help collect data in that way too.
For sure. And I think, Stephanie, can you speak on what activities those mini grants could cover? Could they cover something like that as well?
Yeah, and I'll let Juan Luis also add in anything, but just generally, we have this mini grant program, which is offering up to $2,000 for really any outreach that's related to AB 617, getting the news out about our programs, doing air quality education. And it really is a wide group of folks that are eligible. It's, nonprofits would be eligible, like Boys and Girls Clubs, just, lots of folks are available. So if there's any interest, like Janine said earlier, about doing enhanced outreach that's related to things that are, AB 617 related, there's this mini grant that's available. And we're looking to fund things, especially in the community. We've had a couple of groups from our Stockton AB 617 community apply and get the grant. And so that's something I'm happy to pop into the chat, the link for the mini grant as well for folks to take a closer look at the guidelines.
The other thing I wanted to ask too was about the reallocation, if we can kind of go back to that a little bit before the meeting ends. But just kind of, I want to make sure that like the health centered measures that are like going to directly impact people's health, get some funding in that reallocation. So I don't know if we need to come up with a number here or just like, say that we want to be considered for some of that funding for reallocation. I think it's really important to make sure that people have quality indoor air, so yeah, I just didn't want to let that to get lost before the meeting ended.
Stephanie, do you know, are there other areas where they're looking at, the other subcommittees are looking at requesting allocation from the school air filtration?
We have heard a couple from, a couple other, ideas from groups. But I do think, like you're saying, and I think like we've seen from the district-wide program, that like immediate relief for folks and especially residents in the community is something that's super high priority. So I think this really is a demonstrated need that, that I think would be high on the CSC's list to be able to reallocate. Yeah, so I don't necessarily see why this wouldn't be something that the full CSC isn't interested in, but I definitely think it I think bringing it up to this group and literally in this next meeting, I think could be a good space. And in terms of funding amounts, I don't think we need to, say one specific amount right now. But I will touch base with my team and maybe we can touch base with the co-leads if this changes. That's something I'll just have to talk to our team about because I don't know too specifically about exact amounts at this point.
Yeah, I think one thing to consider, and I don't know these numbers off the top of my head, but I know we have them somewhere, is how many residential homes are in the community and how much money would we be looking at that's available to reallocate, and how many homes would that potentially cover? So we know that we can do about 5,000 devices per $1 million. So, if you reallocated $1 million, we'd be looking at about 5,000 devices. That's device plus extra filter. If you reallocated 2 million, we'd be around 10,000. And that's based on the average pricing that we currently have. So of course, when we dial things in and make selections and determine, okay, we want to keep the device within these specifications and this dollar range, that might change. But we have several manufacturers that we've worked with in the Clean Air Center program that offer residential devices that meet the highest specifications that would cover 5 to 800 square feet in the $200 price range. So I feel very confident that we can be very close to those numbers, and that might help you guys kind of get a sense of how far will the money go, how much should we potentially try to ask for, especially if you know that there are 20,000 homes in the community and you want to be able to reach at least half of them. You're going to need about $2 million.
Thank you, Janine, and Stephanie, and everybody on the call. It's about that time to kind of wrap up. I just wanted to take a quick pause and see if there's any questions or anything like that, and then we can take a look at our next steps, or if there's anything to add to next steps from the notes.
Something I kind of want to uplift and discuss, like hearing about the mini grant and thinking about the different approaches. I think definitely I know we didn't really have time to talk about the CBO partnership and sort of the model that we're moving forward with. I definitely want, for Kevin to share some of his insights of what that looked like. So hoping we could talk about that at our next meeting in November. And also, just really uplifting like the CBO work and thinking if there is any potential for maybe like increasing the grants for the CBOs doing outreach work because we do specialize in reaching the hard to reach populations, and some of the CBOs also have robust asthma mitigation programs that are already equipped. So to give them resources to really help with Valley Air in spreading the word. Those are some of the key things for me, and if anyone else has anything else too.
I wonder if I could just close this off really quickly with just thinking about the timeline for this project. It's something I wish we had more time to discuss, but I do want folks to keep in mind of, I think on all of our minds is, we want to make sure that these funds are getting out to the community as soon as possible. And we do have deadlines for these funds. And so just generally some things to put in your minds. This is something that will require a project plan. And so I know Janine is drafting that, and I think we'll take all of the feedback that we heard from this meeting today and continue to incorporate that into the project plan. But that is something we'll need to submit to CARB, which probably would take, generally I think they've been aiming for about 60 days. I think it hasn't always been that, but that's something that something to consider. In addition, this is something that would need to go to our governing board as well, our district governing board. And I think like Janine is saying, in terms of just how we choose the distributor, if we do go either with, if we are going to do this, hybrid model, that does allow for in-person events, but also potentially higher, more competitive pricing, we will go to RFQ. So that stands for requests for quotation. So RFQ. So this is essentially something that will go out asking all folks that are, able to apply to give us their best pricing. And so that process, I think Janine, what you were saying, it's about 45 days.
Yeah, I think we can really set it at any time frame we want, but if we want to reach the most vendors, we probably want to do 30 to 45 days.
Mhm. And then I think just thinking about the meeting schedule of this group, I know at first we had aimed for maybe beginning of this year, but given all of the different steps that we'll have to take for this group, I think it is potential that maybe late Q1 of 2023 we could think about starting some in-person events, and potentially in Q2 of 2023 starting the full program, just to keep all of this in mind. There's a lot of steps, and I know Scott and Kyle know about this as well with the project plan approval and all of that, but it being these being government funds, we just have to go through these certain steps. So I just want to close off with that, of keeping in mind that for this group, if we do, as we're thinking about steps and thinking of getting this money out to the community, there are a couple of things we'll have to do before this program can officially kick off. Well, thanks everyone. I'll maybe pass it over to Kevin and Jazzy to close off the meeting.
Yeah, thank you all for being here and joining us today. Thanks, Kevin, for letting me co-facilitate. And yeah, well, I had fun. Great conversation, everybody. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Thanks, everyone. And Jazzy and Kevin will look forward to maybe hearing your updates. I think we will be working with all subcommittee co-leads just about these in-depth updates, but we'll be reaching out to everyone and looking forward to hearing some in-depth updates about this subcommittee in our next meeting.
Next week, right?
Yes, October 5th.
Yep.
That sounds good with me. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Stephanie. Thank you,
you.
Jeanine, for your support and everyone.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.